In today's competitive business landscape, workplace culture has evolved from being a nice-to-have to a critical business strategy. Experts emphasize that when employees feel valued and connected to their company's mission, productivity and innovation naturally follows. Now, the conversation around the business case for becoming a great place to work explores how cultivating a positive work environment goes beyond employee satisfaction. It directly impacts trust, engagement, performance, and overall organizational growth. Now, joining us in the studio to discuss how this can play out in a workplace, especially how it will and can affect your business, your company, and your staff performance. We do have the country manager, Great Place to Work, Mr. Tochi Achugo, joins us here. Did I get that right?
No.
Oh, okay. Please help me with that.
My name is Otamare Elegon.
Otamare, I beg your pardon. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Well, I think we're expecting two guests. The other guest is supposed to join us virtually. But then again, let's hope that he does join us. But thank you so much for being here, by the way.
Thank you very much.
It's normal that in a business, in a company, you do have people who sometimes they're not motivated to work. Sometimes they hinge it on salary increment, even when you increase the salary. How does an environment of a workplace play out? How does it impact or affect every single staff who actually works for a company? If the environment is not conducive, does it affect them? Even if it's conducive, how does it play a major role?
Yes, thanks for having me this morning. We see that there's great emphasis around relationships that are built in workplaces. Workplaces are basically an extension of what we have relationships with ourselves, spouses. And so when you come to a place where people come together to work, you want to be able to be sure that we are working together to achieve the same purpose and objectives. There's emphasis around trust. For us as an organization, what they do is what defines being able to build that right culture that is critical for your organization. And there's so much, if I give an example, there's so much emphasis around agility in the workspace in this day and age. And agility is basically driven by being able to have defined good levels of trust. If I don't trust you in your decisions, if I don't trust you in being able to take care of me, having my back, then there's likelihood that when you give out decisions or agree on decisions, we're not able to effectively articulate and execute on those decisions that are achieved or are agreed upon. If we don't begin to have good levels of trust within the organization.
All right. Let's talk about, workplace culture, right? How would you say that, in fact, what defines a workplace culture? And how would you say that this influences employees' trust and how they commit to doing their jobs?
And so, like I mentioned earlier on, the workplace culture basically is the way, in general speaking, is the way we do things here.
So maybe what I'm trying to get is, for example, practical examples of what a workplace culture will look like. And in the course of your time with a Great Place to Work, have you come across organizations that don't have a good workplace culture?
We come across a number of companies that don't have a good workplace culture. And it's centered around, like I mentioned earlier on, that you don't trust management. And so work basically is employers coming together to be able to achieve certain goals and objectives. And so where we have defined what those goals and objectives are, and somewhere along this journey, so to speak, maybe management has promised and not delivered on that promise, then we begin to have doubts when next time management comes to say, we'll go achieve X, Y, Z, and you can be assured of getting certain things done for you. And so being able to have that harmonization between employer and employee to be able to get to achieve those objectives is what would define what your workplace culture looks like.
Okay.
Now, I also want to come in here because we keep talking about a great place to work. Now, many leaders see having a great place to work certification as symbolic, and it does offer a real business advantage. Can you paint a picture of what a great place to work feels and looks like?
Well, once again, I always will emphasize trust. Because some people have the wrong notion that if you have a good salaries, it's a great place to work. But we find out that salaries alone don't define great workplaces. And so it's around credibility. We want to be able to see, is management credible? Does management have an understanding of this business? If you don't have management that doesn't know what the direction looks like for the business, you're going to have a lot of restive employees not too sure about what the future looks like. We're going to measure to say, do employees feel respected at work? Do my opinions count? Does management provide me an enabling environment to be successful at work? I can bring my best self to work, irrespective of what I am and who I am at work.
Grow.
And to grow. Certainly to grow. At the end of the day, employees want to be able to grow, but they want to be able to do that in an environment where they feel secure. I was saying I had a session sometime where I said, when I started work at my time, emphasis was around what the pay was. But we see a growing change around, am I going to be comfortable around where I work? Will I have a great sense of purpose, achieving my purpose, working in a great place to work? And so those are those factors that begin to determine and shape what workplace culture looks like in this day and age.
All right, let's talk about a commonly thrown around word, which is toxic workplace.
Okay.
And I'm sure that you maybe have met a couple of employees that would say, somebody sent me a message yesterday saying she had quit her job. When I asked why, she said the workplace was toxic. Like you said, it's shifted from just salary conversations to, do I feel accepted here? So what would a toxic workplace look like from some of the complaints that you've heard?
Is where employees are treated as commodities. We say that great workplaces are places where relationships are human, are a gift. Working in an organization, we see it as a gift. And so when you work in a place where it's a commodity, where you're treated like as if you just come to get the job done, I don't care what you need to do, I don't care how you go about it, I don't care whether you're happy about it.
No empathy.
No empathy, no feeling of, there's so much emphasis around work-life balance today in this day and age. And so employees are made to work extra miles, extra hours to get the job done. Employees feel that I can ask a question. We believe that workers today in this day and age are arguably the most intelligent that have ever existed since work began, because they are employees who are constantly willing to know and understand. And so one of our questions will say, I can ask my management any reasonable question and get a straight answer. Management is approachable and easy to talk with. If you have a workplace where employees don't feel I can ask questions, I can question. If I'm not comfortable around what the feedback looks like, I can say to management, can I have a word to say, this is what I think around, or what I think it should be done, then you begin to find a situation where employees cannot speak, and they begin to feel like as if this place probably is not the place where I want to go to work.
Mr. Mr. Elegon, do we need to understand the work culture of that place before we ask questions? Before you say, okay, I believe I've worked past 9 hours. Why are you keeping me here? I need to rest. Those sorts of things. Or do you encourage employees to just ask those questions? Because some of those questions can get you into trouble. They might single you out as a troublesome person and, begin to victimize you, even though it's your right. You're not paying me overtime. You're making me work long hours and you expect me to do it on a regular basis.
So that's an example of a place that's not a good place to work. Because employees, because we even find from data and analysis that when employees are able to give their best, they feel part of the organization, there's a good level of belonging, and they can contribute their ideas to make that company grow, productivity is higher. You don't want a place where employees are working long hours and they begin to feel they're not able to give their best at the end of the day. So you want a place where employees can give their best, and highest levels of performance will basically be defined by how long you work on a shift or a particular time of the day.
Okay, I want us to look at companies abroad,
okay,
and some of the practices that you think that employers in Nigeria can emulate. And I'll give you an example. I had gone to a multinational some years back, and I'm not even talking 2025, and one of the things that stood out for me in that company was the fact that they had daycare provided for the staff, such that nursing mothers who were returning to work could come to work with their children and not be worried about the care that the children were getting. If they needed the mother's attention, they would come down, attend to the children, and go back. And from the reports, that certainly boosted productivity, right? It's not a Nigerian company. Yes, there are some Nigerian companies that are imbibing that culture, but from your experience, what are some of the things that you think we here in Nigeria, employers in Nigeria, can borrow, some cultures they can borrow to improve the quality of the work culture here in Nigeria?
Okay, so for instance, You mentioned the daycare. There is an organization in Nigeria that goes beyond providing a daycare, providing a school. It's a government-registered school in Nigeria where they ensure that the employees, at no extra cost, have their children go.
Is it a Nigerian company?
It's a Nigerian company. I will not mention the name,
Yes,
but it's a
please.
Nigerian company. But they go above and beyond to be able to provide that sort of feedback. One of the things we also see, and I always keep on laying emphasis around being able to provide that environment where employees can open up and express themselves and have support. And so companies generally would say have regular discussions with your employees. Listening is so critical. We see that listening is one of the biggest challenges we see for leadership. And so being able to provide a platform where employees can genuinely speak up and be listened to, and if feedback from whatever has been said, agreed upon, is taken into consideration is critical. We see also too where companies, greater places also too, in terms of being able to provide some levels of maybe part of profit sharing. We see that from some companies that go to places say, we agree on certain deliverables. And so when we achieve those deliverables, we get X, Y, and Z as part of the way to motivate employees, so that employees begin to see themselves as partners to be able to achieve the goals and objectives that have been set for them.
What if the part of the argument would be that it's a small company, it's a small business, and they are resource constrained, so they may not be able to do things like opening a school or providing a daycare? How can small businesses and resource constrained businesses also put measures in to ensure that theirs is a great place to work? And
so at Great Place to Work, we have 9 practice areas. I might not be able to fully mention them. One of them is caring for employees. One of them is thanking employees for what they do. So even the basics, you've achieved X, Y, Z, we want to appreciate you for what you've achieved, is critical.
Some will say you are spoiling them. To get into their head.
No, our data,
toxic companies.
No, our data doesn't point to that fact. Our data points to the fact that even as human beings, as relationships, thanking people. So it's almost like saying
after paying them salary, they thank
them.
Yes,
like thanking them. So after saying, it's almost like saying you're paying the fees of your children at school, but you can't thank them for achieving success because you paid their school fees. So
there's an expectation.
Expectation that is supposed to be part of it. It's about developing employees. And so employees want to be able to come to a place where they work and they feel that they've been developed for whatever it is they've been able to achieve. And there's also too about celebrating employees.
Employee of the month.
Employee of the month, employee of the year. We have companies where the employees is allowed to come sit on the decks of the MD for a day. We see that for a number of companies.
So we've seen governor of one day.
Even tech companies,
yes.
telcos, yeah.
And so those are some of those ways, and so those are critical for.
Let's look at the aspect of what future trends will define what it means to be a great place to work, especially starting from now. We have the advent of the artificial intelligence. We have people working remotely. People no longer need to come to the office. So what would the trend look like? What would you call a great place to work, especially for remote businesses and the likes?
Back again, it's going to be centered around trust. AI, remote work, it's going to be centered around trust. Do I trust that when people are working remotely, they're doing the work?
As long as you get the work done.
Exactly. Why are we focusing on? We should focus on productivity as opposed to presence.
So that's critical.
As opposed to eye service.
So that's critical. So whether it's AI, whether it's remote work, it's about, are you getting the job done? Are you delivering on those objectives that are critical? We see one of the biggest challenges across globally around communication. Our survey allows us 2 questions. One says, management is competent at running this business. Another one says, management keeps me informed about what I need to do to get the job done. And we see for a number of companies, the issues around competence, employees say, across Africa will say, no doubt management is competent. But with regards to keeping me informed, it's a big gulf. Some companies, the gap could be about at least 30%. And so we say to management, we say to the HR leaders, you truly are not fully competent if you cannot execute on your strategy. And you require effective communication to be able to drive a strategy. And so there you see how culture plays a key role even with articulating what strategy is and how it's cascaded across the entire organization.
Now, does a great place to work also apply to non-white collar jobs? Because from our discussions so far this morning, it's almost like it applies to a certain category of workers, white collar job. What about the other guys out there?
It applies to them. It applies to them even for the non-collar or blue-collar workers.
No collar.
No collar at all.
The black
it
collar.
applies. And so for us, the minimum to be a good place to work is 10 employees.
Okay.
And I say that because when we carry out our surveys, we have to ensure that anonymity is so critical. And so you have to have a number of people to be able to do that survey so that the feedback is not pointed to them. Our survey allows us to say the minimum you can have for any demographic to be defined is having at least 5 people. So that HR is not saying, I'm sure it was John who said this. When you have at least 5 people, it's
not 10, it's 5.
10 people, but 5 people at least in each demography that enables us to be able to define the feedback from the survey. And so for even the non-collar workers, if they are gathered together as a cooperative, we are able to...
You can also apply this to government agencies.
Certainly.
Okay, I have 2 questions, but the first one will be, how can companies or businesses that obviously have terrible work culture, how can they transition? Do you have examples of companies where maybe you had done the first rating and it was a very terrible work culture, they failed in flying colors, and then over time they were able to transition to then become a great place to work? If you have examples, it would be great to share.
I will not mention examples.
Okay.
But we know of a very reputable organization that hires thousands of employees. When they did the survey the first time, they didn't get certified as a great place to work. But management recognized that the fact that this is a journey. It's a journey. And so they said to us, we know it's a journey, we know where we are. The results were not shocking as a surprise, but we want you to come and work with us as an organization to be able to achieve those objectives. And so through a cultural transformation framework, we began to work with them through trainings, workshops, interventions, diverse interventions. And today, as I speak, over a 6-year period, they are one of the most celebrated companies.
Wonderful. Okay. We're going to break. When we come back from the break, I'll ask you my second question. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're speaking with Mr. Otamare Elegon, and we're looking at a great place to work and what that entails. You're the country manager of a great place to work. My final question is, what is the importance of being certified a great place to work? Because some people can think, I don't really need that. We're doing well. The numbers are converting. Why is it important?
Make assumptions, yeah.
Exactly, to be certified a great place to work.
Well, thanks a lot. It's a badge that is recognized in 170 plus countries. I think when I even checked this morning, it's 180 plus countries. For us, that speaks to credibility of what we do. It speaks to a defining of workplace culture. As an organization, we've basically led the charge around defining good workplaces, around workplace culture. And so we see great value. I work as country manager for Great Place to Work Nigeria. I oversee operations in Kenya and Cote d'Ivoire, but we surveyed in about 22 plus countries across Africa. And the feedback clearly points out to the fact that certification has enabled us to attract great talent. Reaching out to HR leaders across these companies, they say, being certified has enabled us to attract good talent. We see a lot of employees who are asking questions around the company a great place to work, to be sure that I'm not going to get into a toxic environment. We see also too that because employees are better engaged at work, it impacts on their productivity. We see employees who are at good workplaces have greater levels of pride. And that impacts on productivity. Because we say, like I always say, customers can see from a mile away when employees have great pride in what they do and what they bring to the table. And so we see from our data that it impacts on productivity. It impacts on return on investments because customers can relate with the business, want to do more business with the organization, and all of that are those benefits that we see for great workplaces. Okay. So it's getting the right people, credible employees, getting also to even innovation is critical, and we see great workplaces really outshine the market in terms of innovation.
All right, thank you very much for joining us. And as you continue with your trainings and certifications, please tell employers that some of the things we're advocating for would be 4 days to work and 3 days to stay at home, and for people to be more flexible working from home. And also, they should toast us when they're employing us. I saw a friend who was applying for a job, and the person showed me the JD, and part of what the organization was saying, in Norway, they were saying to you, perks of working with us, you have access to the spa, you have access to the sporting facility, you know, our office is by the beach. And I said, wow, this is pure 100% toasting. As an employee, you'll be excited to work with them.
But so we find out like that, if there's no trust, irrespective of all of these specs,
yeah,
they're going to have challenges in future.
Exactly, because it will be audio, all the promises will be audio.
Mr. Otamare Elegon, thank you for joining us this morning from A Great Place to Work.